So aren't human beings strange creatures? They walk around telling everyone that it's easy. It's easy to learn from your mistakes. We tell our children, get on that bicycle, and if you fall off, don't worry about it. You can get back up on it. But what if you were here today and you had the opportunity to walk onto a stage and say, hello, my name's Anne, and I'm a colossal failure. I had a situation in my life where I turned into a VIP, not what you think, very intensively penniless. I lost everything, and decided to talk about failure as one of the first people in Germany to do so. And do you know what happens if you talk about failure? You walk into a room and people think, okay, I'll be off now. I'll be off now, and this woman, she's not got anything to offer. Isn't it strange when you think that you don't lose any of your contacts? You don't lose the ability to talk. You don't lose the ability to innovate. You don't lose what you've learned, but what you can lose is the belief in yourself. Now, you might have thought today, seeing a topic, successful failure, that you'd be here today to hear about how you could avoid failure. And you see, that was one of my first mistakes, thinking you could avoid failure. I had a company that I set up in Germany, and this company was awarded a prize in 2001 from 200 companies as one of the best companies. The press made me into Germany's Aaron Brockovich of middle-sized companies, and I do ask you not to look too closely today because plastic surgery is very, very expensive. For people who don't have any money, it's totally out of the question to try to look like Julia Roberts. But this company went on, and when I founded it out of the reasoning behind being a Taurian. Security. Don't take any foreign money from anyone else. Finance everything out of your business. Talk about being careful. And build slowly and surely. I then found out there was no possibility to actually have real security, because when September the 11th came, I had the problem that all of my companies started to fall to pieces. I'd built it up very, very solidly, but people didn't come anymore. And I had an office space that I had to pay for. Very, very worrying in this situation. And I began to walk through the night and think about, what can you do? Who are you when you lose everything? Who are you? And then I thought, well, maybe the words could help. What about if you thought about insolvency? Solvent is a chemical sign, a chemical term that we use to say about something that dissolved. Insolvent might mean you'd come back to the core of who you are. You walk through into a situation, and one day you realize that your biggest mistake was you founded this company without thinking about failure. I lost everything, all of my money, everything that I own. And I had to go to something called an insolvency attorney. And the insolvency attorney was something that frightened me. I'd have to walk out and tell everyone that I owed people money, and I practiced insolvency attorney, insolvency attorney. Please don't let me cry when I see this man who is going to tell me that I'm going to lose my apartment, I'm going to lose my company, I'm going to lose everything that I own, including my pension. And I practiced and I practiced, and I went up to the door, and I was trying to hold myself together, and there this man stood. Now, fortunately, in England, we say, if we haven't got any money, I have not got a bean. And there he was, the spitting image of Mr. Bean. The great thing about it was that I was trying not to laugh because he looked like Mr. Bean. So when he told me I was going to lose everything and I'd have to move out of my apartment, I sort of wondered, if you think I'm crazy when I talk about it. And I asked him what's going to happen, and he said, there'll be an insolvency administrator come. And this insolvency administrator will say, you can't talk to the creditors. And I kind of hoped that if this insolvency administrator came, that he wouldn't look like Mr. Bean, but that I might be a little bit lucky 6 years that he'd accompany me, that he'd at least have a little bit of similarity to George Clooney. Unfortunately, that was not the case. It was a Bavarian who walked in and explained to me everything I'd done wrong. And I suddenly realized that although we always say, let's learn from experience, although we always say, get up and brush yourself down and walk forward, nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to let you work. Nobody trusts you if you've lost everything. But your biggest mistake is you yourself, the fear of who you are, because you turn into someone that you didn't think you were going to be, a loser. Or are you a loser? Are you a loser if you fall down? Or are you a loser if you don't get back up? One of the key things that you have to learn when you're in this situation is that your value is unchanged. You can remember that you've made a mistake and you can learn from it. But talking about who is responsible for this mistake is not always the key case to getting out of the situation. And I decided to write an article about my situation because I didn't understand why it's so difficult to get back up. I wrote an article and sent it out to 728 journalists in one night, and it was called Insolvency, Help, I'm a Person. And Wall Street Online published it, which was very embarrassing because I already spoke about my attorney as being Mr. Bean in it, and I had no chance to warn him. Thank goodness he had a very, very good sense of humor and got back up on my feet because of hundreds of people who wrote to me, 1,200 people, who said that they were so afraid to go out into society, they were thinking of suicide. And I thought, somebody must change this. So I decided that I might write a book about it. And I walked in to talk about a book, and I thought, okay, if J.K. Rowling was out of work when she wrote Harry Potter, I could maybe try to motivate some kind of company to let me write a book. And I wrote, J.K. Rowling was out of work, I'm out of money. Do you have the courage to let me write? And somebody wrote back, yes. And I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to see if I can write now in German. And I thought they'll tear the book to pieces, but they didn't tear it to pieces. It went onto the bestseller list, onto the business bestseller list, and it was there for exactly 7 months. But it didn't move enough. So I decided to hold speeches. And when I held the speeches, the people would come up to me. They'd have, like, a piece of garlic round their neck. It might be catching. Is failure catching? Is failure catching, or is failure not important? Is it not an important step on the way to somewhere else? And I started holding speeches, and then something very strange happened. The Germans awarded me a business award, the Lady Business Award. You spoke about humor. Everyone says we British people have lots of humor. But let me tell you, to get a business award in the middle of insolvency when you no longer have a business, that is what I call humor. That is definitely humor. And then something even stranger happened. After another award, the EU invited me to speak. And it was very good that I didn't know what the EU was doing, because I had a lot of events that week. And I moved in to Brussels to speak, and I was sat at the table looking at the menu card thinking, how am I going to pay for this menu when somebody walked up to me and gave me his hand, and he said, "My name is," I don't remember the name, "I'm from the World Bank." And I thought, oh no, you're a failure at the World Bank. The next person, OECD, and I'm like, what have I done now? But the speech went on to move a lot. It moved me into a situation where I got on stage with the German justice minister, and one of the laws in Germany was changed, that you will never have to give up your private pension anymore, which I'd lost in my situation. And through all of this time, I thought about all of the things that I thought that I would do. And the strange thing is, I'm probably at an advantage to all of you, because if you're anything like I was, you'll be sitting there thinking, goodness, I hope I don't lose everything. I hope I never get into a situation where I have to hand over everything I own and move out of my own apartment and say to everyone I'm a loser, and I wonder whether I'll manage it. Well, you see, I thought that I'd be one of these people who'd pull the blanket over their heads and say, it's not possible. It's not possible for me to get up. So one of my mistakes was misjudging me because I did get up. One of my other mistakes was, of course, not calculating that failure is part of life. Let me tell you something that I've learned along the way. The position God is occupied. It is no good us trying to apply for this job. It just isn't there. None of us are ever, ever, ever going to be able to achieve perfection. There will always be a time when you fail. But who are you and what don't you lose? I suddenly realized when somebody said to me, why do you talk about failure? And why do you joke when you talk about failure? Why can you still keep laughing? And I thought, goodness, that's one of the things they haven't taken away from me. They do not take away laughter when you fail. They definitely don't. And when people used to say to me, what about your children? Do you know that if we were to look at children, children are untouched by society. Children have no concept of feeling shame at failure until they are integrated into our society. Little children, they learn to walk, and they walk along a table, 1 step, 2 step, boom, it goes down to the floor. I have never seen a child that says, what are the neighbors going to think? I'll never learn to walk. I'll never, ever learn to walk. No, they get up and they walk again. And if they fall again, they get up and they do it again for as long as it takes for them to move forward. I think if you watch other people and their dealings with failure, you can learn a lot about yourself. Because what if I were to stand here and I were afraid to tell any of you that I went insolvent? Would it be your problem? Is it you? Is it you that I'm really afraid of? Or am I afraid of the latent prejudice that's inside of me? Why can't I allow myself to be a human being? Why is it that we say to other people, you're out of a job? Go to the unemployment office. It's only temporary, it's not a problem. But when we are in the situation that we have to do it, we say, I can't go to the employment office, not me. One of my friends said to me, when she offered me help in this situation, I said to her, I can't take anything from you. She said to me, why are you so arrogant? And I thought, what's she talking about? Why does she think I'm arrogant if I can't take help? And then she said, you expected all of us, when you were successful, to accept your help. Are you better than us? Because if you're not, you will have to take my help too. A very, very valuable lesson. For me, walking into the situation, when I moved out of insolvency, because I'd been so open about insolvency, I got a number of opportunities to move forward. And I learned also that we can learn from nature. Nature will teach you there's a character tree. That's the tree that lost the branch in the storm. And the tree that loses the branch in the storm, the branch goes on the floor and it fertilizes that tree. And the tree grows again. Nobody stands in front of a straight tree. The beautiful tree is the character tree. So if you're going to lose, then learn from successful failures like me. Don't forget who you are. And don't forget that at the end of your career, you're not a career. You're a person. And if you're not a person when you reach the end of your career, then you've got a big problem. Thank you very much.